Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heart to Heart. And we are on episode 3 today. I have our very special guest, who is the super talented interdisciplinary artist and instructor. Please welcome Maren Kathleen Elliott. Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me today. How you been?
Been surviving. Yep.
You gotta say thriving and surviving, right, in these times.
Yeah.
You are originally from Edmonton, and now you live and reside and work here. And I was just wondering what brought you here to Ottawa, and how did your arts journey begin?
Okay. Yeah, so Edmonton's my hometown, and I still actually really love it. I think people don't always give it the credit it deserves as an arts community, and there's a lot. If you actually go there and get to know people there and dig into the corners, there's a lot of cool things happening, even if it's not something like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, where the culture just jumps out more at you. Right. I think Ottawa and Edmonton are kind of similar that way. Yeah, so, and they're also really like similar sized cities population wise. So the vibe and the pace in a lot of ways, I think, is quite similar. I came out here for a couple of reasons. I was dating someone who ended up getting a government job out here. So we did like a year-long distance, and I wanted to come and kind of test Ottawa out, but I didn't want to chase after someone, just have that be the reason.
Yeah.
And I was also back in Edmonton. I came to Ottawa September or August 2019 to do an artist residency at the Ottawa School of Art. So that was kind of my reason, my excuse to come over. And in Edmonton, before I left, I had my own violin viola teaching studio. So my main hustle was teaching music out of my apartment, and then I sometimes go into schools or do some outreach stuff. But I was really, really busy running my own business and teaching and just pouring so much energy into my students. And I love it. I love teaching. I miss my students, actually. I really miss it right now. But I was finding, in terms of balance of my life, I was spending so much time and energy on running my own business and on like prepping and teaching and all the energy it takes to teach, that I didn't have the time to delve into the creative stuff that I really was curious about, and didn't have as much time to be working on my visual arts projects. So it was a good excuse to kind of like change up the pace, have some time where I could really delve into my art practice, and also like test out Ottawa as a city, see kind of where things went. And I ended up really, really liking it here. And then kind of the pandemic happened and I was here, and it's been a weird time to get settled into a new place, but yeah, that's kind of how I ended up making the transfer over to Ottawa. Yeah, so far so good. Like I said, it's like in some ways there's a lot of similarities, I'd say, between the two cities. One thing I really have liked since I came here is how close we are to Montreal, Toronto, even like New York. There's just so much potential for like cross-pollinizing with other creative people in these amazing places. And it's just like a few hours away. Like there's a lot more possibilities to do projects in multiple places compared to Edmonton, where the closest city was Calgary, and Calgary's not necessarily a huge arts hub. And then beyond that, it's Vancouver, and then you're driving like 12 hours over the mountains. So it's not really feasible to do like a quick collab.
Right.
In the way that like I've been able to do here. Like, yeah. So.
Yeah. And you kind of dipped into what I was going to bring up next, which was comparing Edmonton art scene to Ottawa art scene. If you were to sum up the Edmonton art scene, how would you describe it?
Oh, that's tricky.
Yeah, sorry I didn't put that in the questions. It just came off the top of my head.
No, that's okay. Here is what I will say. I feel, and I'm just going to use a comparative lens again with Ottawa. I feel that because Ottawa is Canada's capital city, they have a certain like image to uphold, and they have a certain reputation to kind of appear to be cultured. And so I think in some ways there's more institutional support of creative people in their projects here. And I think in Edmonton, it's a little bit more like tooth and nail in terms of resources sometimes for artists, and people, have to get creative in terms of like making things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they don't hear too. I mean, that's just like the life of an artist.
I'm liking the shirt that you're wearing. Can you
Thank
talk
you.
a little? Hey, what is this shirt all about?
Yes. So my partner encouraged me to wear my own merch today and plug it here. This shirt is an image of one of the portraits I made for my Imaginal Dialogues string portrait series. So that's the project that I came to Ottawa with for my residency, was this series of what ended up being 11 3x4 foot large scale portraits of people from my life who I had photographed, and then I made them in string. So I painted the background gray, and then after that, it's all just layers and layers of black and white string to get, and maybe you can pull up an image to show it a little bit better. But it's like the same idea of drawing on toned paper with the charcoal and with the chalk or something like that gives those darks and lights. I just did that with physical yarn.
Nice. Yeah. And I think that's how we met too, is I remember when I was at school and you were doing your residency and I just peeked in one day and you were doing something with the string that really caught my eye. And I was like, I want to learn more about this.
Ooh, yeah. It's definitely like my own unique method. I don't think, like I've seen some really awesome, like there's some amazing textile art out there, weaving, embroidery artists, even embroidery artists that do large scale portraiture. And then there's a lot of people make string art with like nails, where you're using tension to create light and shadow with straight lines. But I haven't seen too much of this before, at least not done as much and as obsessively as I did for the 4 years.
I had never seen anybody do the technique the way that, like, I've never seen anybody do it the way that you've done. So that I couldn't stop watching. I was like, what's she doing? I really like this.
Thank you. Yeah. It's definitely like, it's not like rewarding in the sense of like expressive instant gratification, because it's every little piece has to be done one at a time, and then you have to wait for the layers to dry, and it's just like, it's slow and meticulous. So I think like actually, like when I finished the whole series and I finally did what ended up being an online exhibit of it, people were like, oh, what's next? More string? And I was like, screw it, I'm so tired of that. Like, I had the idea for really working with string, getting intimate with string, doing portraits in like literally when I was a teenager. So I spent and then of course there was a number of years that I wasn't actually, it was just brewing back there, and I did a degree in psychology and I did other things in my life, but like it had been something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And then when I finally did start working on the project, it still took me like 5 years, I think, from the first to the last one, something like that. So it was a real long haul. And I had been really strict with myself, because I said, like, I wanted to really kind of master the method. And so I set really strict boundaries, like I want them all to be this size and they're going to be black and white. And so in some ways, like, even though I was playing creatively, in terms of like backgrounds and textures and how exactly am I going to approach the, hair or this person's unique features and stuff. It was really constraining. And like I said, really slow and not fun. So it was kind of a labor of stubbornness in a lot of ways. And I think like moving forward, I'm going to try to be more open to just doing one piece at a time and then just kind of seeing where things evolve, instead of having this vision. Like essentially I had a vision of a really big piece that just took me a lot of years to do. So anyway, that's the stringalism. It's funny though, because when I finished it and I did my show, people were like, what's next? More string, whatever. And I was like, no way, Jose, I'm done. Like, but I find myself like really drawn to it still. Not necessarily, I'm not like, now I'm doing some more mixed media stuff and I'll use paint or I'll use collage, but I still want to integrate string into it. Like, it's just like almost like an instinct now.
If you are all able to see this series sometime in person, like online doesn't capture the depth of Maren's string pieces. If you have a chance to see it in person sometime, it just takes patience. I can only imagine like how long it took you to do each individual piece of string and waiting in the layers. I couldn't even imagine how long it took you to go through that. It was just
I don't really even know. All I know is that it's over now.
You're like, okay, it's done.
Um,
So this leads into another one of my questions, because so you mentioned on your website that you dip into a lot of conventional or accessible items, and yarn was listed as one of them. Is there any one that you're thinking of using next, or is there like a material that you're like, maybe not?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I'm still trying to be pretty open-minded at this point in terms of where I don't have any, I'm just like doing a lot of experimentation again and a lot of playing, and probably I'll be doing a lot more research soon. I think a lot of the reason why I've like incorporated everyday objects or craft supplies into my work in the past was that they were just like, there's something really relatable about them as like a viewer to see like, oh, look, it's a button or whatever. These objects, that these everyday moments and everyday objects that we can all relate to. And also it's just kind of what I had around as well. And I think there's something really cool about recontextualizing objects that you can use them in art. So even materials that you use in your art can carry other meanings, or what you use can actually inform the meaning of your work. I was at Ottawa School of Art because they like, I feel like there's a lot of art schools that reject tradition these days, and that really are big on focusing more on new technology or focusing more on really, really conceptual work. And Ottawa School of Art also, I think, values traditional methods and techniques and provides opportunity for people to explore with those. And so getting to meet some people who are really like masters in what they do, like oil painters, or like I did a mentorship through Arts Network Ottawa with Adrian Gore, who's an instructor. Yeah.
He's
and
so
Adrian,
great.
like, he's really cool. He'd be a neat interview if you're looking for more people. I don't know.
Thanks for giving me some ideas.
Yeah. But like, you know, Adrian is so as much as I had in the past been like all about everyday objects and things that are cheap and whatever, seeing people that like Adrian is such a master. He does these like Byzantine, like he uses these techniques from Byzantine iconography.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the
like,
gold
ancient practices of like making gesso yourself and like sourcing pigments and carving and like gilding and all this stuff. I really gained an appreciation for people who use traditional methods too, and who use kind of more obscure methods. Because there can be like such meaning in that process as well. And it also comes out with just gorgeous results. And it doesn't have to be, you know, just because you're using traditional methods doesn't mean you can't explore contemporary, like the contemporary world that we're in right now, and issues and our reality.
I think you hit the nail on the head. That's how I felt about my experience going to OSA, was there are such traditional practices that they teach you, but they teach you that you don't have to limit yourself to just the traditional mindset, if that makes sense.
No, it's like not stuck in the past, nor has it rejected the past.
Exactly.
It's got an interesting way of situating it in the here and now.
It's a traditional new really hybrid, I find. Like that's, and I remember first, when I first attended the school, I was super intimidated because that was my original mindset, was like, it's all traditional. I'm coming in with an open mind, no experience, like, So now, like, going through that, it's so nice to see that, like, old meets new, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it can still carry through contemporary and current concepts, or have that open mindset and still keep the older traditional practices. That's exactly what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's really, if you haven't checked out OSA, it's a plug for Ottawa School of Art right now. You should go check them out, take some courses from them.
Plugging it.
Yeah, and if you get a chance to go in person and see they have really nice exhibitions up. I think about, I want to say every few months, every month. It depends.
Yeah, they have
a
couple gallery
right
spaces.
Now. Yeah, it depends on the pandemic situation right now. But if you have a chance, check it out. They're awesome. So you did mention that you have a BA in psych and that you had your own business with music. And you've done a number of different professions or jobs, like distress line worker, being a fitness and dance instructor, working in outreach. How has that all made an impact on your work or your process?
Yeah, I think it like can't not. You know, I think like any life experience that you have as an artist, like part of whether we want it or not, like it's going to somehow affect what comes out, right? For me, I'm really interested in people and stories and relationships. So I think like I've had a lot of like meaningful connections through, and like hard lessons too, when I was working in mental health, for example, or with people with chronic illness, and I don't know, just like teaching, and like kids are like, I don't know, you work with kids and teenagers, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think just like having had opportunities to be really like working with people and in different community spaces and not just like bubbled up in my studio all the time. Although right now, of course, pandemic times, like I am.
Apart from this situation. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Like, I don't exactly know, but there's just stuff like, for example, I can just thought of an example right now, which is I'm like about to start a research project this May through September, and I'm looking at art in medicalized settings. And one connection that I have to that is I actually like worked in a hospital when I was like out of high school. I worked there for a bit, and then a little bit during my undergrad as well. And after my undergrad, I portered at a hospital. So I like, that's the job where you like push people around on stretchers and clean and clean them. And then, you know, you're running around. That's the job.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, I didn't know, like I learned a lot about how hospitals are and those big institutions and kinds of like many different kinds of people that end up working there and visiting, and everybody gets sick. So yeah, and also just like seeing the racism happen, you know, and seeing the just like discrimination, like, you know, people were homophobic sometimes, and really like there's a lot of racism in healthcare, and like I don't know. Now I'm like, oh, I'm doing like an art project on art in hospitals, and I have this like memory of being like a cog in that machine, and in a way, and fly on the wall when I was like, because when you're like doing a simple job, like I think there are jobs where you're more involved in patient care and you're like having to make a lot of hard decisions and do charting and stuff. But when you're doing a job that's like more like labor but not brain job, like I think there's like, I don't know, like a lot seeped in. And so I'm sure that when I'm doing my research, I'm going to have like the framework of those stories and my own personal experience in that kind of environment.
Has your creative process changed throughout the pandemic? And if it has, I guess to what extent?
Okay. Oh my God. It feels like I feel like life prior to that first isolation that we did, in some ways it feels like a bajillion years ago and like a weird dream, you know, like it's like another reality now for sure. But so I'm trying to think like what's changed. And I've had like a lot of personal changes too. Like I found a studio here in Ottawa, so moved into that, and I actually found a place to live that wasn't a weird temporary situation, so that was good. But like, so it's just been like, in terms of just like my own combobulation, it's been a lot. It's been a big year. I had to adapt. Like I was supposed to have my solo exhibition of the string portraits, all of them all together, finally done. This big project. I was going to have an exhibition at the Edmonton Convention Center. And then like, you know, like many things, you know, many other projects too throughout the year just got kind of like smashed to the side or had to change. And I ended up like doing an online show instead. And it was a big learning curve because I'm not that techie of a person. Like, but there are certain elements. So it's on my YouTube channel. It's all, yeah, plug that. But
I'll put that in the description box.
That's right. I did like an artist talk, and I did like an opening night where I like did a live broadcast that integrated videos of like dancers from back home that like had originally agreed to like dance at the opening. We were like, no, let's do like a video project. And yeah, so I guess I have like gained a certain comfort with using online channels. And I also did a 3D gallery so people could go in and like walk around, you know, explore with their cursor or whatever, and explore this like Sims variety gallery. And you could go and look at the work and it gives you the information. So for something like that, I think if I end up doing, like, I think in the post-pandemic world when things are more normal and we can do more in-person events and live performance actually like in the flesh, I like can't wait for that. There's like nothing like that energy. But it's nice to know that like if there's people who can't access those events, there's ways to make it accessible too. Like there are solutions. So, you know, for Pride last year, my friend collaborator Juan Saavedra and I, we did this show called Concrete Cleavage. And it was a pop-up poster show and it was outside. And we did a Toronto show and then an Ottawa show and an online show. And once, like, we had the submissions from all the artists anyway, we had all the digital images. So to do that extra step and do the 3D gallery, it was a skill that I had learned from my own solo show. And so that's an example of like kind of like doing an online component of something that's also in person. And maybe like I do want to acknowledge, I don't think these things are always necessarily worth the work. We only have so much energy to do. Mm-hmm. And you have to be self-protective and like just like realize that we're in kind of a like I live in this economy of personal energy that I'm always trying to manage. But I don't know. Yeah, it's cool to be like, oh, if we're gonna do like a live movement performance, let's get someone in to film it, or let's live stream it, or like let's get someone in to film it anyway, and then we'll have like something to share for folks that couldn't make it in person. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'll like, you know, there's just more tools to integrate, more tools of archiving and sharing that are online digitally. That'll just be nice to have in like my pocket. And this is for me and other artists, I'm sure, as well.
Like, I think, like you said, a lot of us had to gain some sort of tech knowledge through all this pandemic. But I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I like in the past, like pre-pandemic, I'd seen very small gallery tours, but just a quick 1-2 video of people's artwork. Mm-hmm. But now that everything is majority online, we have grown to use these skills and use this knowledge to really create, like, put all of our energy into a virtual show, if that makes sense. Like it was always there, but it's never always, it's bigger than it was before.
Totally. And even something as simple as doing like if you still don't have a lot of time or skills, or like if your resources are limited, but even something as simple as doing like a video walkthrough and throwing that on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Great. Like awesome. It's there. Like people can access it. They can like scroll forward or back, or at the hospital, there's a hospital, St. Vincent here, and it's part of the Briere organization, which is like a group of research hospitals. So there's an artist named CJ Fleury who developed an artist in residency program for one of their hospitals, and they set up this whole thing so that people who are like cannot like leave their beds, the hospital has iPads that they can lend to them, so they can go and use the iPads to access the art that's in the gallery out in the hall, you know, and stuff like that.
That's amazing. So I know you mentioned moving and getting your own studio, so that's been keeping you busy during the pandemic. Is there anything else apart from creating that's been keeping you busy and moving that has been keeping you busy?
Like I said, like I've done like a big life combobulation. Like actually, like there was so much, like my lease in Edmonton like ran out while I was stuck in here because of quarantine. Like I was supposed to go, and my parents had to like, luckily I had like help back there, and like, so there was like a lot of like, then trying to find a place and find an art studio, the stuff, and do that during the pandemic was like, I'm so glad that it's behind the past now. And I don't know, like part of what's kept me busy during this pandemic is just like settling into this new space, into the new city, into my studio, and making it feel like home. Other than that, like who hasn't gotten into houseplants? I feel like it's like such a
yeah.
They're the new pets, and pets are the new children.
Yeah.
Like so yeah, I've got some plants that have been, you know, doing the plant thing, trying to go on walks every day.
You have, I know you kind of mentioned like future concepts, but do you have any projects or shows coming up?
I do. I'm in one group show. I should have the dates up, but it's in May through July. It's an online show called Body Beautiful, looking at really celebrating diversity in the human body. So the pieces that I have in that show is just 2 drawings from the beginning of something. This is just something that I'm like just starting now, and I don't really, like I said, I'm going to try to be open-minded with myself and see where it goes. So I don't know where it's going to be going, but I like working figuratively. And one thing that I have always like noticed is, especially in Western art history, there's like a lot of it was like by and for the heterosexual male gaze. So there's all these like lithe, feminine, hairless forms that you can like admire. But I want to explore like body hair, and I just think like the textures and patterns that it forms on people who have visible body hair is like really fascinating and beautiful. And so I want to do a drawing series that celebrates that. So yeah, there'll be a couple drawings from that in the Body Beautiful show. And then I have a piece up right now as well in this giant online show. Like it's really, I think they have over 150 artists in it or something. It's huge. But it's done by an organization called Patient for Patient Safety Canada, and they're all about like advocating for people's rights as patients when they access healthcare. And so like a lot of the art is by like all kinds of artists, like exploring the idea of healing. And then also they have like healthcare workers who like paint or sing or do other things, like a nurse, you know, made a quilt, or like there's a video by someone else, you know. So it's pretty neat, although it's an endeavor because there's just so much. It's kind of like you know, you have to set by, you know, a couple of hours to go through all the art, but it's really cool to be a part of that. I don't have any big solo projects right now, other than this research project that I mentioned earlier that I'm going to be doing in association with the Briere organization, which is that hospital research group, and just looking at art in hospitals. And I'm not sure where it's going to take me yet. The first thing that I'm interested in doing is just reading and trying to explore what's being done right now.
So where can everyone find your work online?
Sure. Yeah, so I have a website. It's MarenKathleenElliott.com. And then I'm also, I have a YouTube channel, and the channel's not like made for YouTube specifically, but it has kind of just like an archive of some of the projects I've done in the past. And sometimes I'll update it if I have video content. And then I also have Instagram and Twitter at Maren K. Elliott, or you can find me on Facebook, Maren Kathleen Elliott artist page.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I'll leave all of Maren's connects and handles down in the description box if you're interested. So Maren, thank you very much for joining me today. And if you are interested in seeing Maren's work online, I will link all of her socials down below in the description box. And thank you for tuning in. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thanks.